To see you this morning.
Morning.
Hi.
Are you disappointed by what the Prime Minister's had to say about lockdowns?
I am disappointed. I think we need certainty more than ever. If you're trying to run a business in this country, if you're trying to just work and live your life in this country, you need to be able to say for sure that your hotel or your pub or whatever will be open in a year's time. You need to be able to count on that. All the indications are that any future variants will be mild and that COVID will become, well, it has already become endemic. It's just flowing through the population. It's not a pandemic anymore. It's not something that we need to be building our politics around. And we know now, of course, more than we ever have about the damage that lockdowns did, the economic damage, the mental health damage, in all kinds of different ways. And so I think it's incredible now that we have a Conservative Prime Minister that still won't rule out that extreme radical measure, even now when it seems like the pandemic is over.
Yeah, but he will be saying only what his advice is, surely. And if his advisors are saying to him, you can't rule out the possibility of another variant may not necessarily be harmless. And he's always put on the spot, isn't he? I mean, interviewers always do this to people. They sort of say, does that mean you can't rule it out? Does that mean we could? And even put on the spot there, he still couldn't rule it out. He's just doing what his advisors are telling him to do, surely.
My concern is that one of the things we've learnt over the past 2 years is that it's never just as simple as we'll just follow the science. Because, of course, that's what the government kept saying. We'll just follow the science. We'll do what the scientists tell us to do. But when you delve a bit deeper beneath the surface, there are all these different conflicting opinions within the scientific community. And you have more pessimistic and less pessimistic projections even within the different scenarios that you have. And so it's not as simple. I think Boris Johnson, as our leader, as the leader of the government who was elected to that position, he has to take a stand, he has to put his foot down. If not now, then when can we ever rule out lockdowns?
So if you don't listen to your advisors, what's the point of having them at all?
Well, indeed, but it's got to be someone who makes a decision and decides which of the cases is most convincing. It seems to me that he's just refusing to get off the fence at the moment and protecting his own backside, but possibly at the expense of the country.
OK, look, talking from number 10, let's move to number 11, should we? There's a lot of pressure on Rishi Sunak at the moment over his wife, the fact that she's got this non-dom status, so she pays tax on the money that she earns in the UK. She's not paying tax on the money she's earning from her parents' company in India. Is that wrong?
Well, there's a huge amount of pressure over this, as we would expect. Non-dom status isn't all that uncommon. The reason this case is in the news is because it's the Chancellor of the Exchequer's wife. And so Rishi Sunak has worked very, very hard during his time in government to craft his public image. He's been very careful to make a very clear and particular image for himself, which recently has come under a lot of strain. He wants to be seen as a man of the people. For a while, people were talking about him as the obvious successor to Boris Johnson when it looked like he might resign at the height of the Partygate scandal. But now his polling numbers have dropped quite dramatically. And a lot of it, I think, comes from this perception that he can't possibly be one of the people. He can't possibly be the person to lead us out of the cost of living crisis because he doesn't really understand what it means to be in a cost of living crisis.
Yeah, but hold on. What about his wife here? Should she be paying, I mean, it's several million pounds that she's not paying in tax here because she's got non-dom status? Is that right?
It's a difficult question, and it's one that the government, I think, a conversation the government doesn't really want to have about whether it's right to have non-domiciled people in this way not having to pay tax in Britain on all their incomes. But I don't think there's necessarily a simple solution, because if she had to pay tax here, does that mean that the Indian government then misses out on the tax? Because, of course, this is dividends from a company based in India that we're talking about. Or does it mean she gets taxed twice on the same income, which does seem a little bit unfair? It's certainly a murky situation, and her spokesperson was unable to rule out the possibility of the use of tax havens. I believe at some point in the past she used Mauritius as a tax haven, according to her spokesperson.
But she's done nothing wrong, and nobody's alleging she's done anything wrong. It's almost as though we're asking, is it right for somebody that wealthy to be living in number 11, which is, after all, paid for by us? It seems extraordinary, doesn't it?
It does. It seems very extraordinary.
Do you think this has been a campaign against them? Because it all came out, really, didn't it, on the day that he hiked up the national insurance for the rest of us?
It did, and there have been some people speculating that perhaps some of these leaks, if we trace them all the way back. They could be trying to come from number 10, in fact, because reportedly there's been a bit of a falling out between number 10 and number 11, with Boris Johnson being a little bit unhappy about the contents of the spring statement and the statements that the Chancellor has been making. I'm a little bit uneasy about the linking so easily of two people's finances in this way. If it was Rishi Sunak's personal income that was under the microscope, then I can very much see the case that he, as a member of the government, he needs to declare everything, and we have a right to know about it. But because it's his wife, it's somebody else. Is it right that she has this amount of scrutiny just for the crime of being married to someone in the government? I'm not sure that it is, when other people who have the same tax status don't have the same kind of scrutiny.
OK.